Well, a very interesting and exciting and full of curveballs week 7 just concluded, which means we're on to week 8. The waiver wire has come and passed. Hopefully, you got whoever you wanted, and hopefully, they work out. And hopefully, it wasn't a waste of fab like it may have been for some for the past 2 weeks. In just a short bit, we will look at how I did for my love 'em and my fade 'em from week 7 with all of those curveballs, as well as how I did with some DFS advice, where I will give you my week 8 DFS advice for the quarterback position at the end of this video. And you can find these rankings as well as the projections that you are seeing up on the screen at www.theFFForge.com. Link down in the description. You can see right above me as well. Every position will be up by Wednesday evening. Thursday is the video. Friday is the video that I come out with the tight ends. So if you need any tight end input prior to Thursday, you can find the rankings and projections up there on the website. Let's look at how I did in week 7. For my DFS picks, I did not do well with either of them. Gave you Tua Tagovailoa at 7,700. Thought that he would be worth it, even though, as far as one of the more expensive options, he was not worth it. Finished as the quarterback 23. And as a cheaper option, I gave you Brock Purdy at 5,500. Bad decision. He finished as the quarterback 21. That did not work out. For my love 'em, I gave you Jordan Love, and that did not work out. He did finish as the quarterback 13, but I had much higher hopes for him, much higher expectations given the matchup. And so I would say that he did not come through, at least in a week where there were not a lot of great quarterback results outside of some of the top guys yet again. At least he might have been able to keep up with your opponents. And for my fade 'em, I absolutely nailed it, and I nailed the reasoning behind it. I thought it was a terrible matchup for Jared Goff in short, and so Jared Goff was my fade 'em. He finished as the quarterback 25 on the week, so good job there. Now, let's get on to the week 8 quarterback rankings. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve. I know it's a little bit of a late introduction, but that's just how I do things here sometimes. So, as I stated, if you have one of these top 9 quarterbacks, so I do have them split into 2 tiers, but essentially both of these tiers are must starts. If you have these guys, I don't think I have to explain exactly why they're a must start this week. Just start them, because for the most part, all of these guys have the good matchups, the good quarterbacks with the good matchups, so that's already a plus. But that's where things become a headache a little bit down the road if you do not have one of these top 9 quarterbacks. So I have Jalen Hurts as my QB1, followed by Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes as my QB3. He has an excellent floor going up against Denver, who maybe that defense is getting a little bit better, but we just saw this matchup a couple weeks ago. We know that Patrick should be fine. Then Josh Allen going up against Tampa Bay. Justin Herbert going up against Chicago. Then a little bit of a tier break, but once again, not a huge tier break. Here going to Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff at quarterback 7, Kirk Cousins and Trevor Lawrence in at quarterback 9, going up against Pittsburgh. I will say Kirk Cousins going up against Green Bay. It hasn't been a great quarterback matchup. Maybe don't expect some sort of huge ceiling from him, but especially when you compare him to some of the other options that maybe would be available out there if you didn't want to play him, it's not looking pretty. So let's get on to my third tier. Going from quarterback 10 to quarterback 15, I have Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, Sam Howell. We will see both of my fade 'em and my love 'em in this tier for this week. So a little bit about these guys. Joe Burrow's going up against the San Francisco 49ers. That is still a bottom 3 quarterback matchup after last week, after they kind of got beat up a little bit by Kirk Cousins. And Burrow has mostly struggled up to this point in the season, but you might just have to give him your trust because, once again, it's not a real pretty week for quarterbacks outside of those top several. Then in at quarterback 11, I have Brock Purdy. I didn't write anything down there. He's going up against Cincinnati. Give it a little bit of faith if he is without Debo yet again, which I kind of expect. That does not help my faith in him, but once again, don't love the quarterbacks this week, so I would start him as my QB11, I suppose. Then quarterback 12, I have CJ Stroud, and Carolina is not the smash quarterback matchup that people seem to think that they are, because teams can just run all the heck over them. Still, CJ Stroud comes with probably the safest floor in this entire tier, and if they cannot get their run game going against the league's second best running back matchup, then I think that CJ Stroud will also have his ceiling in that event. And I do think that in that event is very possible. Houston struggles to run the ball very well, so they still might be in kind of their normal game plan that has produced some pretty good fantasy numbers for CJ Stroud all season long. Quarterback 13, I have Jordan Love, and I have trust him with a frown face. You probably don't want to trust him. Reddy said before last week that he's hard to trust, but in such a smash matchup, you should definitely trust him. Well, I'm not saying you should definitely trust him this week. I'm just saying, based on everything, this is about the point where I would start him. Minnesota's defense has appeared to be improving each week, so that's not good for him. But I do still think that they're quite susceptible on the edges for some big plays. The reason that he is a fade is because the Packers' offensive line has struggled and Minnesota loves to blitz. So that's not a great combination. Does give me some fear for another bust game. Where I guess it wasn't a bust game last week for Jordan Love, but at least another disappointing performance. It's going to be up to the coaching staff to give a good game plan for Jordan Love against the blitz. And unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of faith in that based on the coaching play calling over the past 2, maybe 3 weeks for Green Bay. Hasn't been as good as it was to start off the season. A lot of concerns for Jordan Love, but at the end of the day, he is, up there as a starter still. And then Dak Prescott is a love him for me. And at quarterback 14, going up against the Los Angeles Rams. And it really is as simple as there aren't a whole lot of options to love guys down, a little bit lower. I like to give fades as high as I can and loves as low as I can each and every week, take a little bit of risk. But, Dak has not had a great season up to this point. Los Angeles Rams are a very mid defense. And I think that this could be I don't want to call it a get-right game because I feel like I've said that already for this Dallas offense, but a game where they should be able to be okay. Los Angeles Rams really struggle keeping teams off of the field, offenses, and I think Dallas will be able to move the ball with enough consistency, and that could lead to a good day for Dak. Then Sam Howell, I have in at quarterback 15. He projects amazingly. I think he projected as my quarterback 7 based on my single number projection. And this is a plus quarterback matchup going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. I do have a fear about Sam Howell's ability to handle this defense if the Philadelphia defense comes ready to play and just kind of gives it to them. It could be a very poor day for Sam Howell. That's possible. Still, there is the argument, I think, that could be made to start him over anybody else in this tier, including Joe Burrow. So kind of balance that out, and he's at the bottom of this tier. And that's going to bring us to this 4th tier, which is just 2 guys, just a little mini tier, because I would not quite start them over any of the other guys ahead of them. I would love to be able to trust either one of them for different reasons, but Dallas and Kansas City, their matchups respectively there, Matt Stafford, quarterback 16, going up against Dallas, Russell Wilson, 17, going up against Kansas City, are both bad matchups. We just saw Russell Wilson 2 weeks ago struggle against Kansas City, where he had 95 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, and I think 31 rushing yards at least. But, not a great stat line there, and that was very recent. So tough to trust him, in my opinion, against one of the best defenses in the league. That's going to bring us to this final tier of somewhat importance for people who are having to dig into this tier. I'm going to have to this week, almost certainly. This tier, I'm going to call it, it's like the mix 'em up, shake 'em up, however you want tier. I don't really feel comfortable with exactly how they're ranked at this point in time. There will probably be micro movements throughout the week within the tier, but I do feel comfortable with these guys in this tier, that's for sure. Starting off with Deshaun Watson, even the projections know that there is a wide range of outcomes for Deshaun Watson. Can you trust his shoulder if he comes back this week? I don't know that you can. I want to be able to, though, in a week with not too many great matchups once we get to this point in the options for quarterbacks. Then at quarterback 19, I have Baker Mayfield. Buffalo's defense is pretty banged up. They've been the second toughest matchup for quarterbacks, but I don't think that quite adds up to the reality of how tough they are for quarterbacks to score on. And what that means is I do think that there is some hope for Baker Mayfield against this banged up Buffalo defense. Then I do think that there's some hope here. Once again, just like Deshaun Watson for Jimmy Garoppolo, it comes down to, can you trust his back if he does come back in this game? I don't know that you can, but I would like to this week. And that's going to bring us to Bryce Young and Derek Carr here. A little note on both of them. They're in decent matchups and they're healthy. So that's 2 pluses for them. Then Desmond Ridder in at quarterback 23, and he was close to having a massive week last week. Still, it's tough to trust much in what should be a very low-scoring game. It is Vegas's second lowest-scoring game based on the opening over-unders. And then we have Daniel Jones in at quarterback 24, and I would love to move him up further in my rankings. That's if he plays. It's just not going to be easy to do so based on how he has played so far this season and based on his health. The Jets are actually an okay matchup via fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, but tough to trust them. Then Geno Smith in at quarterback 25, and it was a weird week 7 for the Cleveland defense going up against the next guy we have on this list, Gardner Minshew. They're still one of, if not the absolute toughest defense to go up against, and Geno has not had a great year in fantasy football so far. They've been running the ball as much as they can and whatnot. It's a little bit more of an old school Seattle offense and defensive plan, so not expecting too much this week for any kind of ceiling against Cleveland. And then we have Gardner Minshew in at quarterback 26, who, like I said, just went up against Cleveland in one of the strangest games we will see all season long. And New Orleans is the 5th worst matchup for quarterbacks, so maybe that means fire up your Gardner Minshew. But I do think that last week was absolutely fluky, and I would rather not try and ride that wave with Gardner Minshew in another quite tough quarterback matchup. That's going to bring us to my final. I have it broken into 2 tiers, but Tyson Bagent at quarterback 27 and Josh Dobbs in at quarterback 28. Bagent is going up against the best quarterback matchup, and Josh Dobbs is going up against the worst quarterback matchup. And I would love to be able to trust the ceiling of Bagent in this great matchup, or the floor of Josh Dobbs with what he's been able to do on the ground a lot this season. But I just really don't think that you can trust either one of them. It'd be very hard to. Maybe they're in roughly the same kind of... If it wasn't for last week, Gardner Minshew would be right along with these two. Then the final tier here, I do just want to point out Malik Willis, Will Levis. I have them both ranked because if Ryan Tannehill does not play this week, then they are expected to be both on the field and playing. You can't trust either one of them, obviously, as a start. All right, so we know we want to stick within these top 9 quarterbacks for my suggestions as much as possible, at least, for the not dirt cheap option for sure. And so the first quarterback that's really not ranked similarly to how I have the rankings go as far as guys that I like is Jared Goff at 6,400, and not too far behind him is Trevor Lawrence at 6,200 DK bucks. So I do have Jared Goff ranked ahead of Trevor Lawrence, so I'm going to go with Jared Goff as my not cheap option at 6,400 DK bucks. And then when we look at going into the bargain bin, I guess I'm going to hope that things get righted whether or not Deebo Samuel comes back to the San Francisco offense. Going to go for the second week in a row for Brock Purdy in the bargain bin. And going up against Cincinnati could end up being a fairly high-scoring game. That's always possible there. And you know what? I'm just going to give a second one as I went a little bit further down on the list. Sam Howell at 5,200 bucks might kind of offer you maybe even more of a likely ceiling than Brock Purdy for a little bit less cash money. So there we go. Brock Purdy, Sam Howell, a little bit cheaper options. Jared Goff, a little bit more expensive without breaking the bank there. Thank you very, very much for watching this video. There will be videos for each position coming out throughout the rest of the week. And please like, comment, and subscribe if you made it this far. And let's win this week, everybody. Peace out.